above $100. So it's been a long journey for both gold and silver to reach these levels. These are the highest levels on record. But the steep climb for both over the past 12 months has been a notable one, marked by significant market-moving events, with many of those tied to actions by President Donald Trump. What's also interesting about these latest moves in the precious metals is how they've kind of left Bitcoin standing still, right? It wasn't that long ago when Bitcoin was the darling of investors, but now it seems to be out of favor. We brought in our next guest to talk to her more about this meteoric rise and the languishing of Bitcoin. Please welcome into the show Ms. Rebecca Walser, Walser Wealth Management down in Tampa, Florida. Rebecca, thanks for coming on. Always great to have you. Happy Monday to you. Boy, oh boy. I'm going to just kick off with this. Could it be, dollar debasement trade a little bit. It could be inflation, maybe. Depending on which side of the aisle, you could call it chaos, maybe. But now we're starting to trade into that meme stock zone. When they start to trade like meme stocks, Katie bar the door. I don't know what to tell investors because it starts to get real dangerous. What are your thoughts?
I normally would say, hey, if it's like a meme stock, stay away, stay clear. In this case, I think that gold and silver are safety trades. And so when they start to go parabolic, Scott, that's a little bit alarming. I gotta say, like, there are some things in life that are alarming, and it's a five-alarm fire, and it is, you gotta call a spade a spade. Listen, there's a lot going on here. I am getting a little bit concerned about the possibility of some kind of currency coordination between Japan and China. We are seeing the dollar obviously very weakened and the yen at its highest rate in quite a long time. And that scares me because that could, create a reverse carry trade like we saw in August of 2024. And so that's a little bit alarming. But beyond that, I would say that the world is waking up to the fact that from the pandemic, we really printed the equivalent globally, all countries, all in, of about 20 trillion US dollars. Now, that's in domestic currencies. The United States alone from 2020 to 2022, between both fiscal and monetary stimulus, we're talking about $10 trillion on our own end. And that's why we had to call inflation transitory, because they wanted to give it time to work through the system and really see the impact. And that's why we had inflation at some point in the Biden administration over 9%. You can't print your way out of a global pandemic in which you voluntarily agree for the first time ever in the history of recorded time to shut down economies and shut down commerce to get everybody to shelter in place and then kind of see how the cards fall, the cards and the chips and the economy falls where it may. And so what we have realized is that the global world has tried to print their way out of problems. We've become more reliant, Scott, on basically debt financed central banking. And it doesn't work. And so what has happened is the central bank said, well, you know what? We need to buy actual physical gold and silver. We need to take delivery of we saw the largest actual physical deliveries in 2025 that we had seen in 20 years, Scott. Plus, so what we're seeing is a kind of realization that the debt fiat currency bubble cannot continue into perpetuity. And what does that mean? And that's when you get a hard tethering back to precious metals, specifically gold, specifically silver. Now, silver, obviously, I'll just say this and let you get back in here. Silver has two reasons of its price pressures. Not only is it actually a currency metal in the Bible, Haggai 6:2, but also it is, or 2:6 rather, it is also an industrial use for AI and all kinds of semiconductor chip components, yes, all of these things. So it's got a dual use there as well.
You couldn't have said it better, man. That was a great rant. And this is what I'd like to add to that. You started off with COVID, and you're exactly right. That COVID issue, in the Biden administration, when you mentioned it with the inflation rate getting up above 9.9%, it was like 9.1%, the CPI. I think it was in 2022, and it's exactly due to the fact we shut everything down and then printed a lot of money. And a lot of our legislators on both sides of the aisle say, well, you can't really say this is a unique to the U.S. problem. A lot of other Western economies have got the same problem. Well, yeah, because they were just as stupid as we were. Anybody that decided to shut down their economy and pay people to stay home deserves to be spanked. They are going to be judged harshly, I think, in the future about the COVID response and what they did by shutting down. Now, I got death threats about saying I thought it was the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my entire life to shut down our economy. I mean, how many restaurants were able to say, that they served George Washington and they've been open since George Washington was the president, only to be ruined by this shutdown that we had here when we had this COVID issue. Now, I know, don't rate me. I know there's people out there that have lost loved ones, and I get that was going on. But whether or not it was, we had to shut down the economy, that's a whole different story. I'm from the point of view we didn't have to. But when people say that it's not just a U.S. problem, we've got other European countries and other Asian countries that are having the same problem. Yeah, it's because they were just as dumb as we did, locked everybody up, and printed a lot of money. And this is the unintended consequence of what that bad monetary policy was, right?
Yeah, and I think Trump's speech in Davos was very clearly laying out he's got an economic agenda and he's willing to use his economic powers to force the world to his viewpoints. And this Greenland acquisition obviously is also, this is what Trump does, the art of the deal. Read it. He threatens tariffs. He threatened tariffs again on Europe for 10% if they weren't going to get on board with his Greenland situation. And then next thing you know, you've got the NATO, head of NATO coming out and saying, we've got the framework of a deal ironed out for Greenland. So good for this president to realize that, hey, the United States really is so much the underlying support of so many systems and global economies that we should leverage that power to our benefit. Because if we don't, China and their Belt and Road Initiative absolutely would love to target our Greenland and its Arctic waterways to that Belt and Road Initiative through a tangential line there. And that's something that we have to be concerned about. We have to preserve the economic domination of the Western Hemisphere. And I love this Don Rowe theory that we've got. And I want to just quickly go back to Bitcoin and talk about that. Everyone is a big Bitcoin lover. I actually believe in the blockchain, love digital cryptocurrency. But I will say that we didn't have a use case, Scott, of Bitcoin democratized, available, and ETFs on those things since and had a pandemic or some kind of recession, official recession called, or correction since that. So we don't have a use case for how is Bitcoin really going to act in the middle of a really severe market downturn. There is no such implication for gold. And so I think that people at the end of the day, when you really have to tether to a true hard asset, you are going to feel more comfortable in the gold and silver space. That's not to knock cryptocurrency at all. Digital money is the future. But again, we will always have a tether to true hard assets, and that will always be gold and silver.
Awesome to have you on. I knew you'd knock that out of the park. You always do. Really appreciate you coming on. Everybody, a lot of fans love you. Got a lot of fans of the Cow Guy Close. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Rebecca Walser.